time now. We have the engine all put back together, we got the throttle body installed, so it's time to put the frame and the front end back with the engine and the rear end. So we've got our hoses routed. I'm trying to think, I think we're pretty much ready to go. I'd like to get things kind of shifted and positioned so we could just lift this thing up over top of the engine and then start connecting hoses and cables. I'm probably going to need to go pick up a battery if we want to actually try to start this thing, but that's a little bit farther off because we still have to change the transmission fluid and put new oil in. We've already got the spark plugs in, so a lot going on today, so I'm really excited, and let's go. Alright, so a big shout out to my fiance's brother Marcos for helping me out. As you can see, we've got the frame back on the bike. We're going to start bolting up the motor mounts now. But man, that was not easy.
No easy. Too hard.
What was the most difficult part about it?
The
one word.
I forgot.
The isolator. Yeah,
Isolator.
so there's a front motor mount with an isolator. This guy right here, as you can see, the inside is very rusted. Here's the isolator bolt, and this thing was just locked in place, so it was the biggest pain in the butt, but we powered through it, we got it, and now we're going to start putting the motor mounts on. We are going to clean the isolator and the bolt, so if we ever have to take it apart again, there won't be an issue, but for now, let's start putting the motor mounts. You've got the rear isolator bolt, and we're going to kind of fidget with it and get that first one installed, so let's do it. So I think the last of the motor mounts are going to be, there's one that wraps around to the other side here. I think they call that the V bracket. I've got one more tie rod you can see hanging down right here. This is going to get installed right here. And then I also want to install or reinstall the rear shock. Now I haven't torqued anything down to spec yet. It's all just hand tightened for the most part. A couple of them I had to use a wrench just to get it in, but we'll be torquing these all down to spec once all of them are in, so or at least the main ones. So let's go ahead and get the remaining ones in, and then we'll start breaking out the torque wrench. Alright, so now I'm going to focus on a little bit of cable routing. Actually, I installed the screw for the tie rod over here, but before we can actually bolt the rear shock in, I need to reinstall the fan as well as rearrange a couple of cables in here that are in the wrong spot. So I got to remove this guy. I'm also going to be repositioning our rear brake reservoir here. That needs to be inside of the tail section. So just going to be doing a little bit of hose and cable management, and then we'll keep going. Alright, so I've got the V bracket I was talking about earlier. The oil cooler mounts to it, and I believe the way this guy gets installed is we go around this way. The V goes around like that, and then mounts up approximately as shown. So I think I gotta feed it through the exhaust there, but either way, we're going to get this thing mounted up and keep pressing forward. Alright, so now we need to go ahead and install the oil cooler, and I've got that part right here. So we'll be installing this guy before I tighten down and torque the V-bar mounts to spec. So let's go ahead and get this guy installed. So one of the problems I'm having retightening up this same isolator bolt is you can't have any load on the bolt while you're tightening it. So these get tightened down first to spec, but when I go to torque this one, it just spins and spins right back again. So the game plan is I'm going to reattach the rear shock, tighten that to spec, and we'll get it so we can get it off of this wooden fixture, and then I'm going to jack up underneath the engine and raise the engine to the point where there's no more load on this guy while still keeping the nose supported. So we'll see if this works. It's kind of a little bit tricky, but I think we'll be able to get it. So the hardest part's over. It's just this little stuff now. So let's keep pressing on. Alright guys, so I hit a bit of a snag. The front isolator, once again trying to install it, we had some serious issues and these bolts went in just fine. However, this one in the middle, I don't know if it'll pick it up on the camera, but there's a little insert that goes into the frame right here, and when I was installing this kept spinning. So when I finally got that seated and went to torque this down, I ended up using a breaker bar and stripping it out. But I think everything happens for a reason, and after looking at the isolator again, it actually, pieces of rubber were falling out onto the floor after I had installed it, and you know, it's just a safer option to replace this entire thing with a brand new isolator. So I'm not going to let this hold up everything else. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to reinstall everything else, get everything hooked up, and I've got a new isolator already on the way and ordered. Like I said, I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm not going to let it hold me up from everything else on the project. So we'll keep marching and see how far we get. Alright, so working our way back up to the airbox area, throttle body area. I just removed the old injector rail from this hose right here, and it's going to connect to the new port here for the injector rail of the throttle body we bought used. So I'm just going to be connecting this up, and it looks like we've got several connectors here. I believe these both go to the fuel injectors, and I'm gonna have to do a little research to find out which goes with which. The green and the white, I'm sure, matters, of course, so we'll have to do a little research, and then we'll continue routing the other hoses and cables. Alright, now that we've connected some of the cables, it is time to install the ignition coil. So this guy is going to mount right here, and we're going to be tightening those fasteners to 11 foot-pounds, or I think the range is between 120 and 144 inch-pounds. So it's 11 foot-pounds, I'm sorry, 11 foot-pounds, or 120 to 144 inch-pounds. So here we go. Alright, so before we install the ignition coil, I forgot we need to connect our throttle cables, and right now we've got all the access, so we're going to go ahead and knock that out first. Alright, so today is Sunday, and last night we left off installing the throttle cable, and now that that's been installed, we can finish up and install the ignition coil right next to it. The issue was, if we installed the ignition coil first, I wouldn't really have the space I needed to install this, or it would have been more difficult. So let's go ahead and install the ignition coil, and then I think we can start putting the airbox back on. Alright guys, so when I got this bike, I was missing a ton of hardware, and there were random connectors everywhere. We've got every connector, it looks like, has a home now. This one goes into our air temperature sensor. This one here goes into the, I think it's like the interactive exhaust switch or something that's up on the top of the airbox. But we're missing a lot of hardware. So I took this from the lower cowl, and I believe this fits perfectly in areas like this. Yeah, so we should be able to use this hardware everywhere. I want to say kind of want to take from one of these other ones to make sure those aren't it, but it looks like if you take this, has a little lip to it there. You go to install it, it fits perfectly. So I believe this is the hardware we need, and again, everything has a home now. It's just a matter of getting the hardware so we can start bolting everything down. I'll clean this up and then we'll install our airbox. But we also need a battery. We're gonna need oil, transmission fluid, and so I figured while I'm out shopping, I might as well grab all these things at once. All right, so I just got back from multiple stores and I'll show you what I got. I got the Mobile One full synthetic V-twin 20W50. I got 4 quarts. I got new O-rings for both the, what's it called, the primary and the main bolt on the swing arm. I got a genuine Harley battery. Totally not necessary, but I'm going all out, why not? And I got some standard hardware. That was from Advanced Auto Parts, and then this was from Home Depot. I needed some specific things for little connectors of, you know, things that were missing here and there. So let's see if we can get the whole airbox assembly put back together. I want to clean out some of the gunk in here. I'm just going to wipe it all down. And then I have my air temperature sensor that gets installed right there. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, now that we've cleaned this up just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and install the air temperature sensor. I got this from Harley Strippers in Melbourne, Florida. So it looks like we just slide this guy through like so. And boom, there you go. Easy as that. Alright, so I ended up having to pull the entire thing off and reinstall it again because I had forgotten to put the actual duct on. And it's got this nice little lip that overhangs this airbox piece here. So I had to pull the hoses out, unscrew the thing, and pop this guy on, and no big deal. It took me about 5 minutes, but this thing's ready for the air filter now, so that is the next step. So I had just placed the air filter on the airbox, but one critical thing we need to do before actually mounting everything up is oil the filter. Now, this is a uni air filter here, but I just went to local AutoZone and grabbed a K&N oiling kit. So we're gonna go ahead and apply this, and then we'll finish mounting everything up.
Change a thing now, there was never trust. Don't you say a word, cause I've heard it all. You were just a pain when you felt it all. Oh. Something tells me that I won't miss it. It's the first time that we can't fix it. It's irreversible damage done. The thrill is gone. Ooh, baby, I ain't no one like you. You chose to keep the truth.
we've got the air filter installed, the Airbox is on, and you'll notice that we are missing the breather hose for the gas tank. Now, I'm not too concerned about that at the moment. For now, I'm just going to leave it as is. I'm going to go try to source one. I couldn't find one just looking through Google, so I'm just going to source the right size hose, and I'll just find one at AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts or something like that, and we'll install it later. But for now, we are ready to install the Airbox cover. So, as you can see, this mounts up just like so, and this thing is pretty beat up, so I'm debating whether or not I'm going to paint it. That's probably going to depend on how well the thing runs after the rebuild. We've only rebuilt the top end, so I have no idea how the transmission is or how the bottom end is. So we'll get this thing looking decent enough to get on the road, and hopefully we'll get it started here within the next week. Like I said, I'm waiting on the Isolator. I went on the forums and actually read that if you can get the Isolator off, you should never reinstall it. Go get the newer version. I guess the factory was warrantying out a bunch of the old ones back in the day, back in 06, 07, and they were encouraging everybody to swap to a new style of Isolator. So I have that new Isolator on the way. We'll get that taken care of, but we're going to keep working our way back and keep installing stuff.
It's the first time that we can fix it. It's irreversible damage done.
All right, so now I'm going to focus on organizing this section. We've got to reconnect all our wires here. This is going to hang loose for now because this attaches to our exhaust pipe. I've got the stock muffler still. I've got to reconnect all these wires. This guy's got to get screwed in back here, and there's a little clamp that fits in here. And this, I believe, attaches up here in the front. So I'm just going to organize everything, zip tie it down, and after that we should be good to drain whatever oil is left in the primary. I'm going to let the oil drain out of the swing arm if there's anything left in there. And I think we'll be ready to add the fresh oil. I got the full synthetic 20W50.
Once you leave me, it's over. No turning back, not today. Don't you come running back now. I'm not a home for the shame. Something tells me that I won't miss it. It's the first time that we can't fix it. It's irreversible damage done. The thrill is gone. Ooh, baby, there ain't no one like you.
Okay guys, so we avoided having to take the motorcycle to the shop. As you can see, this is our Isolator mount in the front, and it was completely stripped out. However, it was only stripped out, it was fully stripped out only halfway depth-wise. So I was able to hammer in the Allen key and actually spin the entire Isolator out of the frame. Now this is a threaded insert that goes into the frame, and it was stuck to, it had binded up with the actual bolt that passes through it. As you can see, it completely destroyed the Isolator. It is just torn to bits. It's kind of hard to see in the camera, but there's pieces of rubber everywhere. So now I need to find a way to get this off. So I'm going to put it in a vise and torque the thing to hell, and hopefully I can get it off. But I'm going to put a little PB blast on it, and I bought a 1-inch deep socket, which we're going to be putting on this side, and I'm going to be clamping the bolt in a vise. So let's see if it works. Alright guys, so I literally broke the vise trying to get this stupid threaded insert off. Now, I googled the part, I found the part number, and it looks like I can get a brand new one for only $13, and I don't have to break any more tools. So I think I may just do that. It would probably come in next week, so we could knock out pretty much everything else except for this isolator installation. As you can see, I've already got a brand new isolator as compared to the old one, and this bolt has also been replaced with genuine Harley parts. So what I may actually do is I'll call the Harley dealership tomorrow and see if they happen to have these in stock, because I think this is just a generic Harley frame insert. So if they happen to have them in stock, that'd be awesome, and worst comes to worst, we'll just we'll order one.
I'm a lone wolf. 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 Creeping through the shadows and the corners of your mind. I go with the windows. I run but I don't hide. I hear the call of the wild, whispering the name. No, I can't be tamed. My heart belongs to the night. I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm a lone wolf.
Alright guys, so our frame insert from Buell finally came in, and I dropped it. But as you can see, it is brand new. We got brand new threads. That is the main reason why I wanted to get a new one. It was only 15 bucks, and we've got to apply red Loctite on the outside of this thing to make sure it doesn't come out again. But I am really excited to get this in, because that means we can mount up our isolator and get rid of the jack that's under the bike right now. Alright guys, and just like that, the brand new isolator frame insert, the isolator itself, and the isolator bolt have been installed, and we've got everything torqued down to spec. And the big tip here for anyone who does this in the future, make sure you grease this guy really well. And I believe the manual says to put these in first, but I found that jacking the engine up, lightly installing this guy, then putting these in, torquing this to spec, and then torquing those to spec worked great. So I'm really happy. Now I can continue on with the rest of the wrap up. time since October of 2017. I'm going to put the bike on its kickstand and off of the lifts. Oh man. Alright, here we go. Quite a bit heavier now. Alright. Down it goes. Feels pretty sturdy. Pretty happy with that. And there we go. So the only thing left to do on this thing is to drain the gas and do something about the front fairing and hook up the battery. I'm gonna have to hook up the battery tonight because tomorrow I am taking this thing to the DMV straight from work. So I'm actually gonna be loading the bike up on the trailer, that way the DMV can inspect it because this bike has an out-of-state title. And hopefully tomorrow night we'll be able to start it for the very first time. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm ready to see this thing in action. All right, so as you can see, I've got the battery hooked up. We got the brand new Harley battery. And right now we're gonna be testing to make sure the gauge cluster works because the inspection tomorrow, they have to be able to check the mileage. Now I wanna keep my ignition off because I haven't actually dumped the gas out that's in here. I still have to do that tomorrow, so I'm hoping that the fuel pump doesn't prime when I turn the key. If it does, I'll probably turn it right back off. Looks like it did not. And there we go, 13,344 miles. That's what they need to see tomorrow. Very good.